Hey fitness fans, Karen here, and I want to talk to you about overtraining. Do you need a break? So last week I was going through one of the public gyms and there was a sign on the wall saying, are you overtraining? Get your lactate threshold measured. So first of all, it's a bunch of marketing stuff. You can't get your lactate threshold measured at a basic gym. It has to be a medical sports facility, and it's a very long process and expensive. The other thing is, in my view, 99% of the people are not training hard enough. So when we talk about overtraining, just because you're spent at the end of your workout, you're supposed to be. Just because you've been in there for an hour, you're supposed to be. But what's happening is it's become this whole marketing thing. And it's really sad because it's taking people back in their training because they're not understanding what training to the edge is. And when we say training to the edge, it's training to your full potential. So how do you know if you're overtraining, or it could also be undertraining? Here's the deal. If you have joint issues that don't go away, if you have flu-like symptoms non-stop without having the flu. So if you're sore all the time, not your regular soreness, but you're sore and you're just not recuperating. If you have a drop in appetite, your sleep is disrupted. You want to go to bed early, but you need to sleep longer, and then it's not restful. It kind of sounds like menopause. And if you lose your enthusiasm as well. So there's all sorts of different signs. You get more injuries, you just can't recover, you get more colds. However, you need to keep in mind that this can also be a sign of undertraining. So sometimes life gets in the way. Sometimes if you're not consistent with your training, and I'm talking 4+ days a week. 3 days a week to me is not really training. It can be if you're doing at least an hour at a time, but if you're trying for 3 days a week, 30 minutes or 45 minutes a day, there's no way you're going to be getting huge results in your physique as you grow with time. You will in the beginning, but then you'll peter out pretty fast. But you likely won't be cutting into the overtraining zone. And so this is the edge that a lot of us athletes play with. Now, when we go into show, we are definitely in a slightly overtrained position. Some athletes are really overtrained, and that's the old way of doing it with cardio, lots of cardio, steady state, fasted cardio. Training single body parts can sometimes do it. Training not according to your genetics and your goals, cutting calories too much, going low carb. All of this stuff sends you into an overtraining zone. But for some of us, it's a place we need to be at because it's just a short window. We do show and then we resume life after that. So overtraining can be too much consistency where you're in the gym all the time with the pedal on, pedal on, pedal on, or it can actually be the opposite. If you're not consistent and you go in and you try to get back to the workload you were doing, or this time I'm going to do it right, and you're really sore and you do feel like you're not sleeping well and you do have some joint issues that are perking up, it's because you haven't built that consistent foundation. So you need to decide, or you and your coach, if you've got a coach one-on-one, need to decide where you're sitting if something's happening. Now, in my monthly programs, I change up the program every month, and I do that to keep it fresh, but you know I don't reinvent the wheel. I keep a steady, consistent foundation of exercises so you can get into the groove. Your body does like consistency. If you change it up all the time, I call that the boot camp approach to training. It's like the ADD of exercise. Some people just want to see it change up all the time, and that's cool because they don't have a long attention span. But if you're into physique transformation, then you have to stay with something for a while. So how much break should you get if you are in a truly overtrained state? Well, let's look at that. All right, so I gotta hold my mic fell. So how much time off do you need? Generally, every 8 to 12 weeks, take a full week off. What I mean by a full week is you don't do anything. You can go for a walk. You can do a nice hike. Do not do anything that's going to bring your nervous system into play. No light workouts, no MET, no cardio, okay? It is important that you fully rest your nervous system. Now, this is really hard for the athlete that only knows the on or off button. Us A-types, we have a really hard time with that. When I do one-on-one coaching, I ensure my women take the break off and they're not to do anything. This is really hard, but what happens is it resets the nervous system. The nervous system is the success for all of our lifting and all of our physique transformation. It's the nervous system. That's why it's so important you stay consistent with your training 4+ days a week, because that nervous system is the foundation for all your work. But when it's time to rest it, you have to rest it. If you start just wanting to do a light workout so you don't lose your gains, you're going to lose your gains and more. So you have to learn to listen to your body and listen to your coach, me, if we're doing one-on-one. Even if you've been on my monthly for a long time and you're staying consistent with it, you need to take the break. Now, in my monthlies, I build in higher rep months, lower rep months. This is my way of trying to ensure that you get a break with your nervous system. But one-on-one coaching, it's more intense training. And if you're ready for show, or if you've got an event coming up, you're going to be training pretty hard. And so this is really, really important that you do take at least a full week off. Your coach can fill you in a little bit more about that, you know, if you've got a good coach on your side, if you're doing a one-on-one stuff. So you have to be consistent in your training. If you're not, you don't get a break, because you're taking little breaks along the way. So only you know for sure, and your coach. So one of the things that happens when you take time off from training, when you take a full rest, when it's well-deserved and well-needed, is that there's something called the slingshot effect. Now what this is, it's an advanced technique that a lot of athletes and coaches use in order to progress in their progressive weight training, right? We want to see results in all of this. And so the slingshot approach basically says that when you take time off, what happens, and this is only if the intensity is consistent, so you're training 4 or 5 days a week, and you're anywhere from an hour to a little bit more in your workouts. And so that kind of intensity requires a full rest. If you have a full rest and you've been training that way for anywhere from 2 to 3 months or 8 to 10 weeks, somewhere in there, you'll know it's different for everybody. But if you're feeling you're on the edge and there is a sense of possibly overtraining, then you take a full week to 10 days, sometimes even 2 weeks off, depending on how long you've been training on that regime. And then there's the slingshot. And what that means is the nervous system is fully brought down to being non-excited. And like I say, walks and gentle hikes and things like that are fine. And then what happens is when you resume again, your body overextends. And so the adaptations overextend as well. This is also what happens when we do post-contest stuff. Pre-contest is really important in order to get up on stage, but post-contest is where we learned about this. And what happens is with post-contest, your body's been starved for food and glycogen, and the training's been really intense. So you take 1 to 2 weeks off after show, and then everything settles down, and then your body's craving. It's craving the training and it's craving the food, so you give it both. And then what happens is you tend to, if you do it properly, you tend to make the best gains in your training after the contest day if you resume training and eating in a certain way so that you don't overindulge. And that's when the growth occurs, because you've gone into, it's kind of like flowers, they go into a growth phase and then they'll bloom and they'll stop. Well, you actually got to cut back, right? Just like hair, you got to cut it in order for it to grow again. So you're doing a cutting with the show, or you're doing a cutting with the time off, and then it helps to enhance further growth, further improvements. And so with the slingshot effect, you pull back on your training, you don't train, and then you give yourself a full rest, and then when you come back, you actually slingshot even further ahead in your abilities to make progress in your training and therefore your results. So that's why time off is so important. But like I say, in the untrained or non-intense athlete or non-consistent athlete, it's just a break, and it may hamper your training and your progress even more because you haven't been consistent. And so you really have to ask yourself, you know, where am I in all of my training that I've done? And remember, it's not just about the numbers. It's not just about sets completed, reps completed, all that kind of stuff. The intensity is within. I always say you got to bring your mind on board. It's the most important muscle, and I call it Zen and the art of bodybuilding, or body transformation, whatever you want to call it. This has to come in. Intensity is in here. So when I give a range of 8 to 10 reps for you guys, I'm wanting you guys to feel it out. Some people want to know, well, is it exactly 10? Is it exactly 12? And then it's a numbers game, and then everything is external. And I used to be that way for years. I used to train that way by rote, by numbers for years, because I'm an A-type personality, and it's all or nothing, black and white. They're actually some of the hardest athletes to train, especially when it comes to telling them to take time off. And so what happens is I would just look at the numbers and go, oh yeah, I got through that workout, there was 30 sets, wow. But I wasn't engaged. I mean, you think you're engaged because you're going through the motion, but it really is about feeling the intensity through every inch of the movement. So it's really important. Like I say, when I'm training, I kind of go into a Zen-like state. I don't see anybody. It's kind of like the world drops away and I'm focused, and it's like I'm in my body. It's a really neat place to be, but it takes time and a desire to want to be there with work, with concerted effort. So the other thing I employ in our workouts is we're doing hybrid training, and I've moved towards this over the last probably 12 to 18 months. And hybrid training is just a combination of, this is my version of it, traditional bodybuilding moves, because they're still the best for physique enhancement, for shape and tone and lifting and definition, with metabolic work or innervation work, or if I put in a triplex or quadplex, whatever it happens to be, fast-paced, right? Sometimes with weight, sometimes without. And that takes the place of cardio. And so hybrid training is a great way to keep your body progressing more than traditionally done. And it also allows you to recover. And so the need to take time off or to take breaks is lessened, and injuries are lessened because we're moving the body in multi-planes. So we're doing diagonals, we're doing twirling, we're doing side to side, we're doing forward and backward, which is usually what we do with bodybuilding. So we're doing all sorts of different moves. And what this is doing is using the full kinetic chain instead of just isolating one muscle. However, with traditional bodybuilding, we still want to isolate a muscle. So when people say, well, no, you should go functional and not traditional bodybuilding, you should be doing movements and not just working a muscle, it's incorrect. You want both. That's why you're here, guys. And that's why my programs are so popular to women, especially over 35, over 40, over 50, because we want shape and tone, and because we want to build a nice bicep. We want to see our glutes lifted up. You just won't get that with functional work. So functional work has its own methods and its own great aspects. And so what coaches have been doing the last 5 or 6 years, which I'm a part of, is we blend them. You get the best of both worlds. You get the metabolic enhancement, the fat burning enhancement, a body that doesn't hoard fat because of tons of cardio, and you've got functional kinetic change, you got balance, coordination, but you're using fast explosive work, and that digs deeper into the muscles for better muscular development when you do the bodybuilding moves. So it's a perfect marriage. So I hope the video helps to explain, do you deserve or do you need to take time off, what to look for, how much time off. Again, if you're going on holidays, I usually train through them because I don't take a lot of time off. I'm in, when I do shows and that's designated time. There was one stint where I didn't take time off for 18 months. And that was because my program was 5 days a week, but it was kind of built in there and I felt fine. So my cues, my biofeedback was fine. Your biofeedback you need to listen to, or if you're doing a one-on-one coaching, then your coach should be listening to that biofeedback, because it's way more important than looking at a workout card and seeing what sets and reps you've completed. It really is. That's the golden standard. So consider whether you need a break. This is your coach talking. If you guys need a break and you've been on the program for a while, especially those on my Healthy Living program, because it's not individual one-on-one coaching, it's group training, take a week or 2 off if you've been steady and consistent. But I mean full, and that's probably going to be the hardest part. If you haven't been consistent, if you've been hit and miss, then just allow yourself to get back into steady state training. Be consistent, and you'll know when you need to. But this is your coach telling you, if you've done everything right, you've been following my program for months, I'm asking you to please take a full week off. All right? This is your coach talking. Okay, thanks. Ciao.